Bivás. So, how are you keeping your sanity now amid the COVID-19 epidemic?
Well, staying in. So we're in LA, one of the hardest hit. I think now everybody is hard hit, but I think initially it was just three: New York, Washington, and California. So I think we're on week 3? I don't even remember which week it is anymore. The days are blending together.
Yeah, they all seem like Sunday, huh?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, just staying in, learning, a lot of new things online, stuff that you don't necessarily have time. Otherwise, things I've always wanted to do machine learning and artificial intelligence into trading for stock markets and how to incorporate that, in there. So now I'm doing that.
That's awesome. So, okay, to start off a question on, what people can do from home. I remember us talking before this interview that you said that we have to do a disclaimer that everything we say on stock market is just like conversation and educational. It's not business advice because it's really, really easy to lose money in the money trading stock. Why do most people lose money trading stock?
Well, I mean, because the biggest obstacle to traders, I think, is the emotional factor, the emotional aspect. So basically, the stock market runs on emotions. So if you have to trade emotions, then you have to be able to take a step back yourself. If you get emotional, then other people are going to trade you.
Okay, so it's a kind of dog-eat-dog world.
I mean, it just runs on hope and fear. And that's it.
So it's like
hope and fear.
Poker game.
You hope.
Poker game.
Yeah. I mean, it basically runs on hope for the future or fear of what's going to happen now. So and the markets are really volatile right now because of the news and everything that's happening. So yeah, and you're right. If we're going to talk about the stock market, it's not any kind of financial advice. People need to do their own research. It's not a recommendation to buy or sell any assets or instruments. It's one of the most riskiest thing. I mean, it's very easy to lose money. So whatever we talk about here is just for educational purposes.
All right, so educational. Do you have any rules or set of commandments that you do when you're looking into stock or trying to trade stock?
I mean, there are a couple of ways to do it. A lot of people, do fundamental analysis, and the other way of doing it is technical. So in fundamental analysis, you're actually looking at the balance sheets, the income statements, and basically the quality of the company itself that you're investing in. And in technical analysis, you're basically trading the charts. How the market's moving on a tick by tick basis. So there are different ways of trading in the market. One is you can come in as an investor, in which case you don't really care where the market's going right now or if it's tanking or going up. You just are there in for the long haul, and none of these matters over a period of like 10, 20, 30 years. So you're not phased by any of this. That's a long-term investor. And then there are swing traders who actually, trade for like a couple days. They'll be in and out of a position in a couple days or maybe weeks. And then there are day traders who are in and out of positions, multiple times within one day. There are positional traders who are basically like investors, but they would also sell position in a market like this and then wait for a better time to get in again. So yeah, there are just different ways of doing it.
So Do you recommend this to start trading stock if you haven't done the proper research with artificial intelligence? Maybe that could give you good tips, right? What's the future of using artificial intelligence in trading stock?
So interestingly, a lot of the firms are doing algorithmic trading. It's called algorithmic trading, basically, trading with algorithms. And surprisingly, a large number of hedge funds and prop shops, they have already incorporated algorithmic trading into their system. And I think, looking forward, I mean, it's just going to increase. There are some shops that are hedge funds that are opening up right now that are completely 100% algorithmic trading. There is a company called Betterment. It's kind of a bank, but they invest for you, depending with their AI algorithms. There is a company called, my son just told me about this, the Two Sigma. They're an AI company, completely AI. So yeah, I think you're going to see a lot more of those, and some of the results are very interesting. There are some videos on YouTube if you want to research this. They talk about this. Managers come on stage. There's a TED talk, I think. He talks about how his fund returns were pretty decent, using just algorithms. So. And there is a lot of benefits to it, and we can talk about that. But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. It removes the emotional aspect of things that we were just talking about, which is important.
I've seen a lot of apps come up recently about that say they help you with investments and getting into stocks. Have you seen any of those? Like
wait, a lot of what? I'm sorry.
Apps, just like apps for
for
phones that they say like they from your savings they just put a little away and start. I think there's one E-Trade or Robinhood.
I mean, so E-Trade is not a new one. E-Trade is by, I believe it's JP Morgan, either JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley. So E-Trade is from, is an offering from a big bank. What is E-Trade from? I'm going to say it's Morgan Stanley.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. There was a recent one. I think it's called Acorns or something like that. Acorns. I've heard of a bunch of them. I get a lot of publicity in my Instagram feed. These different apps that are coming out to get people into investing, but I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are a little bit scared about it.
Yeah. So Robinhood and stuff, you gotta. It's. So here's the thing with Robinhood. It's got really bad feel. Okay. So even if you're not paying any commission, but you're paying on the back end for giving you a really bad feel on your trade. Right. A fill is basically if you wanna. Let's say if you put in a market order, most of the time you're going to put in limit orders, but let's say market's moving fast, you want to get in, it's a momentum move, and that's where your fill counts, right? So the broker house is supposed to, it's basically taking your trade, standing in line for you, and executing it for you, right? So depending on who, the clout of the brokerage, your position in the line is going to vary, right? So,
okay.
So sometimes you'll get like a really, really bad, so there are like 1,000 people asking for something. Let's say you want to buy something, right? You go to the market, you want to buy something, and there are 1,000 people asking, their own, telling you their own price. So who do you buy it from? So that's the fill. Right, the final price that you get executed at. So you got to be really careful with Robinhood and all this stuff. And their execution is not the best. But as far as like getting introduced to the world of investing and giving your kid $500 to play with and see what he does with, it's a fun little app to introduce you to the world of investing. But beyond that, if you want to get into, it's not for professional investing or trading. Yeah.
Okay, I get it. It's more like just getting to know what it's all about. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so with artificial intelligence, what are the advantages and disadvantages of using it for trading stock?
Well, I mean, so, with algorithms, you're basically, if you're leaving it to a computer to do it, there are some downsides to it, and we'll talk about that. But the advantages would be, first of all, you can do it at scale, right? For example, if you are sitting in front of your monitor and monitoring a bunch of stocks, you can do maybe 5 or 6, right? But you can't really do hundreds at the same time. If you're programming a computer to scan this stuff for you and monitor all these stocks, then you can do hundreds and hundreds of stocks at the same time, right? So scale is one. The most important one for me is it takes out the emotional aspect of things, right? So let's say you have a strategy and you want to execute on that strategy. For example, when, say, some to give you a very simple, and this is not a good strategy at all, but just to make it simple, like let's say the moving average convergence divergence line, the 20 crosses the 50, and then you want to get in, take a position. But when you're doing it yourself, even if it does cross the line, maybe now you get, you're seeing all this other stuff coming in, and maybe a news came in, or you may have lost in the last trade. Now you're like a little gun shy to take this trade, or as soon as you take it, you start getting nervous, like maybe it's going another direction, even if the signals are not, telling you to sell, and you exit the position too soon, or you choke your profits, or all kinds of stuff comes in, like when you suddenly take a position. So when you leave it to the computer, they'll, that stuff is taken care of. They're not getting emotional. They're just trading based on your signals, right? So it's up to you to program it intelligently to act on, the signals.
So as artificial intelligence gets smarter and receives more data from around the world, it's going to act maybe more effective, right?
Yeah, that's the theory. Now it's also a program. So some of the downside is it can be buggy, and your bugs can get real expensive real fast, right? So it can be buggy. You need to monitor it. You can't just you definitely need to monitor it. It's not like you wrote a really good program and it's making you money, so you just let it run and go for a vacation. You got to monitor it. And the reason being, there are high frequency traders, it's called HFTs in the market that are called predatory. They run predatory algorithms. That their algorithms is supposed to break your algorithm. So once they find a bug in your algorithm, they can trade back and forth against you, and within a matter of minutes, your account is bust, right? So you can really blow up your account easily. And, there are stuff you can do to, like, if you lose a certain amount of money, then you can just shut down the system and all that stuff. But so the point is, it needs monitoring. It can have bugs, and sometimes it can be subjected to internet issues and connectivity issues. Let's say you're in a position you really want to get out, and suddenly your internet is down, or so a lot of the times you'll put your server on the cloud and let Amazon Web Services handle it. But the thing is, you don't know when things can go down, right? And then you're stuck in a trade that you don't want to be stuck with.
So it's kind of like the cars that self-driving cars.
Yeah.
Like there still has to be like a driver behind the wheel in case the car makes a mistake. You don't want to run over someone.
Yeah, exactly. You got to monitor. At first, I think we're going to go through a phase of, if you are going to deploy it in your trading pipeline, we're going to go through a phase of actually babysitting it for a while, and then as you get more and more comfortable, maybe you can leave it out for for times. But at least that's where I'm at. I don't know what the other prop shops are doing. I mean, they're a lot of these guys that I was telling you about. They have deployed algorithmic trading for a few years now, and I think they just let their stuff run. And yeah, I don't know. Different people have different approaches.
Okay, so with the pandemic, what are some programs and some languages that you would recommend to work during this crisis, or that could help you for work?
Well, I mean, a lot of people want to get into software, so this might be a good time to learn some new languages. Is that what you're asking? Like, what kind of languages would be?
Yeah, like say something. Okay, I can't work. I lost my job. There's like 6 million plus people that have lost their job, or they can't go to work.
Crazy.
What would? Yeah, it's tough times. It's like big depression numbers. What are some programs and languages that they can use from home to get back into making money?
So that's a great question, and that's a very relevant question. I think a good use of your time would be to learn a new skill. And there are some online courses available today that you can, like sites like Udemy, Udacity. I think Udacity is giving out a lot of discount during this time. Udacity offers nano-degree programs, and but they're usually expensive. But I think they're running some discounts. Udemy always runs some discounts every other day, every few days. I think there is a company called EDX. I'll have to look it up. EDX.com, I think, that runs online courses. So yeah, learning a new skill, and then the programming languages. If you want to get into software, would be. And we can talk about a whole list of programming languages, but to be able to make money sitting at home, I know some of my friends, they're finally putting up the website that they've always wanted to, like design something, write something, or like design handbags and stuff. One of my friends doing that, and she just put up a website on Square, using Square. Is it Square?
Square.
I'm not sure if it's Square. I think Square is the payments processing system. But for a website, there is Shopify, there is Wix.
Yeah, but there is one called Squarespace.
Squarespace, that's the one.
Yep.
Yes. There's a lot of uptick that's happening. Like there's a surge in demand for these website providers. They're seeing a lot of people actually doing this right now. So, and online is, one of the things that we're seeing is the demand for online shopping. People don't necessarily want to go out and get something if they can just get it online. That's one of the reasons Amazon's been holding up so well. Even in all this market downturn, Amazon's actually did pretty well. Even despite all the cases of some of the cases in their warehouses, but. So online shopping is, seeing a lot of uptick. If you are an instructor, if you have always wanted to teach something, this is a good time to start your teaching channel, because people are just sitting at home and learning stuff. You can also do, you can do YouTube, start a channel on YouTube for teaching if you don't want to deal with bringing up a website and all that stuff. But any of those things are going to take some time. It's not like a quick money-making system. But this might be a good time to start setting up those foundations, because you have the market paying attention, where you are selling things, and the market is now there. So this is a good time to start setting up that foundation.
I feel like a lot of companies, due to that pandemic, have had to rush into the work from home system.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, and the different systems that we're using, like Zoom or Skype for meetings and all this?
So Zoom is in a big trouble. Zoom lied a lot in the last few days, and now it's costing them quite big. They were not end-to-end encrypted as they promised they were. That was a lie, and the CEO apologized for it. There's really no apologies for this kind of stuff. I mean, Zoom, everybody was using Zoom.
That's a big lie.
Big lie. Apparently, they, routed some of the private meetings from the US through their Chinese servers by mistake. So those things is just, you can't. I think Tesla just banned the use of Zoom at their factories. Google just banned Zoom in their company. A lot of the universities are now banning Zoom here. But to answer your question, yeah, I think that's been a massive shift in our society. This whole in software, a lot of people were used to working remotely even before this, but now I think everybody is starting to find out the pros and cons of doing this, and how to do it, what kind of gears to set up, and all the learning the new technologies. Even our acting class and everything has gone online. Auditions have gone online. So I think it's a pretty big cultural shift. I'm not sure, but I think once we get to the other side, we're probably going to take a lot of this culture with us. I don't know if this is just going to go away once, because now we're also starting to see the benefits of working from home, spending a lot of time with your family, and currently, it's driving a lot of people crazy, being together in the same room for a long time. But I think there's definitely a culture shift that's happening with this whole online thing and remote working. A lot of companies were shy to try it out, like some companies from the Midwest, and they weren't sure how to do this, if that was going to work out, or how it was going to work out. Now they're seeing firsthand, and so I think I think it'll stay. It's too bad for co-working spaces and office buildings. So it's got a lot of impact in the economy, to the economy. A lot of the corporate buildings and commercial mortgages, they're in trouble. And so that's going to take a long time to recover, and we have to see, how how that pans out going forward.
All right, so, sorry, you asked a question?
No, yeah, no, it affects a lot of businesses. For example, I know that like movie theaters are also like going through a really rough time. Their whole thing is about actually going to a place with a bunch of people and sitting together and watch and like having the same experience. So that's another industry that's really suffering from this. And I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure what. I hope we learn from this. I mean, like on the other hand, the environmental impact has been good. I guess it's cleaner air. People have been seen they can do the same work from home. They don't actually have to go to the drive to their work.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens at the other side.
So yeah, with the pandemic,
And it's alternatives to Zoom. There is Microsoft released something called Skype now, which is version of Skype, but you don't have to register necessarily. You can just log on, just hop on their link and then invite other people. Even if they're not on Skype, they can join the meeting. So I think that will take more traction than Google Hangouts. I think renamed itself to Google Chats. So Google and Microsoft, they're trying to get back into this space for online meetings now that Zoom is not a very viable option. So yeah, I think those two are some of those tech to watch out for online.
so with 6 million plus works jobs lost. There's going to be lots of unemployment, and that problem might not go away for a while. And those jobs might not come back at all due to automation, which is they're speeding up the process for automation because factories need to keep producing, and if you can have people concentrated in your factory, you need machines. The rise of the machines, right? So some of these jobs are not coming back. There's a talk about universal basic income. Andrew Yang started with that policy where every American receives $1,000 a month. As soon as you're 18, you receive $1,000. Everyone, even if you're a millionaire, multimillionaire, or if you're obviously, if you're poor, you're going to receive $1,000 a month. And that's I think for life. How do you feel about that? Universal basic income.
Are you talking about forever or just during this time?
I mean, I would love it if it were forever. Just receive $1,000. That would be great. How do you think?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on
that? To free money, but here's what free money does. I think so. Let's say if you give $1,000 to everybody forever, then that $1,000 would not mean anything much. So basically, if you print a lot of money and give it to everybody, it just creates hyperinflation, right? Because everybody can now have money to buy everything. But if you're not producing goods, so some amount of inflation is good in the society, right? A good amount of inflation, 2% or so, is a sign of a healthy economy. It means we're producing stuff, we're making things, and so things are, more people are buying those things, and more companies are making those things, and more companies are making more of those things. But and so prices slowly go up. So that's healthy. But let's say you start just giving money to people without the companies producing any more of those goods. So now what happens is we all have money to buy those things, and they're in short supply because they're not making any more of those, right? Companies are not producing. It's just people just have a bunch of money. And so now what are you going to do if you're a seller and everybody wants your product? What are you going to do?
Well, you're going to raise the prices.
You're
going to raise the prices.
Exactly. You're going to raise prices. And so now the thing that used to cost $1,000 is now going to be $5,000. So even if with $1,000 now you can buy that thing, right? So this is actually what happened in Venezuela and South Africa, and I think Zimbabwe, I think, where somebody had this great idea of one of the politicians to just give people a lot of money and to fix the economy. And so they started printing money without the factories producing any more of those goods. And inflation went through the roof. I think in 1 year, they saw an inflation of I don't even know, some huge amount, like 20,000% or something. Like if you look up online, you will see notes in Zimbabwe that says $1 trillion note. Like literally, this is $1 trillion. That's a note.
Wow, so everybody in Zimbabwe is a trillionaire.
Yeah, everybody's screwing and nobody can buy anything. Like you go to the market and the price of Apple was $5 trillion, and then within 2 minutes it's now $6 trillion. So and injecting hyperinflation is one of it's like an economic warfare. Like if you want to destroy a country, give them free money. Like inject free money into their economy. Keep injecting free money into their economy. People will scoop it up because it's free money, and that is a very good way of bringing down the country's total economy.
Okay.
So now I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah. Well, I mean all right. So you think universal basic income is not a good idea because it's going to be cause hyperinflation, and then like the money's not going to be worth anything, and people can't buy anything with it. But
I mean, if you're talking about forever, like just giving free money to people forever, but for this time, I think for the times that we're in, I think the stimulus packages are good. I think what the government is doing is it's a good job. I think it's needed because at this time, like you said, 6 million people are, or I don't know, now it's probably 7.5 million people are out of work. Most of the small businesses are suffering. I mean, I don't have to, go through the list. We all know what's going on. And I think at this time, it is absolutely important to keep the liquidity alive. So when we come back, we can at least try to make a comeback. Because most of the small mom and pop stores won't open anymore. They're just not going to open anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of coffee shops in LA that were here for 20 years, they're just not going to open anymore. They're putting up notices saying goodbye to their customers. So, and a lot of people who work in this industry, in the service industry, in hotels, driving, and the Uber, the Lyft, coffee shops, restaurants, airlines. I mean, everybody has to pay mortgage, everybody has to pay rent. That's not going away. Only the jobs are going away. So, and this is not an economic downturn. It was like we were doing fine. It's not like suddenly we hit like an economic problem that is causing this recession. It is just the virus. So I think at this time it's just to keep businesses afloat, to keep people afloat, to give them money at this time for their rent. Because the chain is like it's a circular effect. Like if you don't want to pay rent, then your landlord is not going to be able to pay their mortgage. In which case, the bank is not going to be able to fulfill its promise on its mortgage-backed securities that they sell to the Wall Street, right? So they're going to default. The insurance companies that provide credit swaps are going to basically go bust, which happened in 2008 housing crisis. So it's basically a circular thing. It starts with us and comes back to us, or it starts on the top and goes back to the top. So a lot of the landlords in LA, they're being very, very generous with waiving rent and stuff like that, or postponing rents. But at the same time, some of the smaller landlords, they're hurting, right? Because they're saying, well, we didn't get into this business for lending money to renters. Why are we expected to lend money to renters? Because they have to pay their mortgage to the bank. So I think everybody's hurting at this point. So I think, the stimulus package and giving money to people just to stay afloat is a good idea at this time.
Okay, so I agree with you on that. There's let me get back to the question. Is that okay? After this pandemic, after people start going back on the street and like the pandemic is a little bit more controlled, the vaccine's not going to be here for a year.
Or a year and a half.
Or a year and a half. It's going to take a while. And when people come back to the job market, when people are back in the street, their jobs aren't going to come back because of automation, right? So what's a good head start that people can start doing now at home? What are jobs that you recommend will be relevant, or that people, courses that people can take. Give us maybe some insight on what courses people can take, some jobs that will be relevant in the future, so that now you're stuck at home. Use this time to study this, because this is going to be big when you go back into the job market, or you can find a job doing this. What would you recommend?
So I can only, I'll talk from the software side of things, because that's the field I know most. So, if you want to pick up programming skills, I think a good list of programming languages to learn would be definitely Python. Python is at the top of the list right now, a lot of demand. Some scripting languages like JavaScript or
what is Python for people that that are listening right now and don't know what that is? What is Python?
Python is just another programming language. It's basically it's the reason it's easier to learn, or the reason it's is at a very high demand is basically there's a really good community of people that built a lot of library for Python, and so you can do things very easily and not have to worry about the underlying infrastructure to get things done, and you just focus on your business logic. The other reason Python is very useful right now is because of machine learning and artificial intelligence, the surge of demand in those areas, and Python is one of the primary language that people use to program these systems. And it has a lot of good libraries that take the pain out of programming. Let's say least squares or regression analysis and stuff like that. So you don't have to go bust your head on learning. Go dive deep into the math side of things. You can actually, if you understand the basics, then you can take it from there and start programming your data science, whatever you want to do with that. Talking about data science, that's another thing to learn, because that is in super high demand. Then anything to do with backend, some kind of full stacky, system is a good one to focus on. It used to be front end, for the last few years, but I think the front end market got very oversaturated. So now people expect you to be full stacky, right? Front end and back end, both. The same way that in a film production environment, an editor doesn't have the luxury to just be editing. They have to know color grading to some extent. They have to know visual effects to some extent, and be an all-rounder. So backend like Node.js, a Go language is not a backend, just stepping back from there. Go is also a very popular language that's taking a lot of traction. So I think these are some good ones to learn.
Okay, and are there any courses online? People are going through tough times now. Is there anything maybe free that they can do?
There are a lot of YouTube videos on all these topics that I just mentioned, right? So the only problem with YouTube videos is there are so many that you don't really know if you're following a good curriculum, right? So, if you want a professional to curate what you need to learn to get a basic job, entry-level job in it, that's where companies like Udacity comes in, basically. Because they formulate a whole course, around these topics, so that your learning is progressive and step by step, and you're actually leveling up. YouTube, you never know what you're going to get. You might bump into the level 10 course right away, and you're like, you're learning that, then it's a level 1. You don't know which level is what course when you don't know what
It
steps
looked like an
the ladder looks
alien
like.
language for some people. Like it could look like an alien language for some people, just like looking at what the hell are these people talking about.
Yeah, and then just the natural progression of learning. It's you don't if you want to learn something, you don't know what to learn before. What's the prerequisite for learning this stuff? And all that.
So we have some listeners from Latin America, and what do you? Because some of the programs, some of the courses, like some of the economic assets that you have in the United States, for example, like using PayPal and some payment methods, and some island courses that are free here might not be free somewhere else. What are some recommendations you can give to Latin American countries or emerging markets to survive in the pandemic?
Let's see. I don't know. Emerging markets. And let's say Colombia.
Yeah.
Colombia. Let's do a quick search. Online universities. Distance learning studies in Colombia. So there is one. It's called Distance Learning Portal. I don't know. Why don't we just do a little research on it after the thing, and then I can send you some links and you can maybe put it on.
I'll post them on the webpage. Okay, that's perfectly fine. Okay, so I've just seen how the world is changing, and there are like some advantages to the pandemic, like for the planet. You see the planet's cooling off a little bit. You can see the skies are cleaner, not much smog. It feels like a plan from an evil mastermind, right? And I don't know, Bill Gates, he predicted the pandemic. He's obviously having his company, Microsoft, he is gaining momentum thanks to this with the programs you mentioned before. Do you think Bill Gates is an evil mastermind?
No. No, I actually like Bill Gates. I think he's a great guy. He's doing a lot, actually. He's doing a lot to solve problems, in developing countries. He's stepped down from Microsoft, but still, Microsoft is also doing a lot to fight, the situation right now. They're actively involved in research with universities and they're offering their cloud, infrastructure to cracking the code for vaccines or research and development. So I really like Microsoft, and I like the current CEO Satya Nadella, and I really like Bill Gates, and I think these guys are doing a great job.
Edward Snowden, some consider him a traitor, others consider him a hero. I believe he's a hero, and I listen to everything that he says regarding our individual freedoms. He's warning us that we should really be aware of the surveillance that's going to come with the pandemic. They're talking about electronic digital passports for vaccinated people, and that's going to cause like a segregation. That's going to cause just like freedom of movement. How dangerous are we looking at a Big Brother situation in the future? How dangerous are we? How much in danger are we of losing our freedom?
Well, I mean, with any technology, there is always a risk of misuse. And we have collectively have done that in the past, misuse every technology that has come about. So yeah, there is a big risk. There is a big risk. But if the question is, should we not develop the technology because of the risk? I don't think that's the answer. I think we should develop the technology and also keep these conversations going and be mindful and be aware of exactly these kind of pitfalls and the risks associated with it. So as a collective, we understand how not to use things. So any new technology we develop, there is always a risk of that being used against some nation or some community, right? But it really is on us to not do that, right? It's not necessarily technology's fault. It's basically saying, we invented the hammer and then somebody went and hit somebody over the head with it. It's not really the hammer's fault at that point. But if you see, the hammer has also done a lot of good things in building stuff. So I don't know if we want to, I don't think the answer is putting brakes on technology. I think the answer is really to what you just proposed is we have to be aware more and be careful. And yes, absolutely, there is a big risk.
So we just have to be always aware and make sure that technology doesn't fall into the wrong hands. But I feel a little bit septic because this thing tends to fall into the wrong hands, like technology or something, like some sort of power. Usually, I don't know. That's some opposition, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that digital passport is going to be used obviously by the government to monitor who is infected, who was infected, and monitor how they're developing, right? So if that's the wrong hands, then the problem is that it's the wrong government. So I guess we just have to keep in check that we maintain our civil liberties, and the technology is not used to invade anyone's civil rights or stop them. I guess we have to just keep in check the government with the use of this technology, or if it comes into use, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's easier said than done. But that's I think that's the. I don't know if that's part of our evolution or whatnot, because it's one thing to understand the risks, and it's another thing to act on it. Like even with Facebook and all this social media, we can complain all day long about privacy issues and stuff like that. But the point is, we use it all the time for things that are not super useful to us. Being stuck on Facebook for 5 hours a day is not making you money, right? Is not furthering your career. Is not making you, evolve into a good human being or helping you do any of that. So, but we're doing it, and we will sign away our life to the agreements that clearly states that we can sell your information or whatever. It's going to be an ambiguous, wording, and we don't care. So, the stuff, when we use stuff for free, we are the product. If something is free, if the platform is free, then we are the product, and they are going to sell information. That's the only way they'll make money, is by selling the information of people who are using it. If that's not the way to make money, then they'll have to charge people. Then would you be okay paying $10 to use Facebook? Right?
I probably wouldn't use it. If I had to pay $20 to use Facebook,
so we can,
I could shut it.
At any one point of time, we can step back and say, okay, I'm just going to limit my... Huh? What?
I was saying that if I would have to pay $20 to use Facebook, I
You're
would shut it
breaking up a
down.
little bit. I didn't get that.
Oh yeah, we have a little bit of delay. I was saying that if I had to pay $20 to use Facebook, I would shut it down. I would burn my computer.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. So then you know, so you know, you have to keep that in mind. So if that's the case, then why don't you just shut it down anyways, right? Because you're losing a lot more than $20 a month by being on a free platform and giving out all your information. Because you have to understand that we are in a world where if I get on my soapbox of too much is just cut me out and tell me to shut up. But I feel strongly about this, that we're in a world where we all have a digital twin, right? And our digital twin is more valuable than us at this point, because our digital twin remembers what you bought last year on this day, right? I don't, but my digital twin does. So digital data right now is the new gold, right? It's the new oil. It's actually more valuable than oil. Somebody did this study, and you can find it online, that I think 2 years back, data surpassed oil in its value. And most of us, we are not aware of the value of this data. So we all have a digital twin, and we don't have any control over that twin. We are letting other companies control that digital twin, which is our data.
So are you saying Mark Zuckerberg may be the evil mastermind? He created the pandemic so people stay at home and watch Facebook?
I don't think anyone's created the pandemic. I mean, what do I know? But I don't think that's what happened. All I'm saying is, to answer your question on the risks of digital, technology and digital passport and how to be aware of things. And we were, talking about how it's easier said than done. Even if we were aware of it, it's sometimes not easy to act on it. So I think, understanding the value of digital data and the value of your twin in the digital world, I think is a good first step. I think most of the people, they don't care about it. They really don't. And it's the same thing as when the virus was not in our country. A lot of people just didn't care because it's not here, tangible, and that they can see or feel. And now that it's here, now we're taking it a lot more seriously. Even when it was here, there were a whole bunch of a group of people who were too cool for the virus, and they were like, we're gonna go out anyways. It doesn't matter. And now we're all seeing the effects of the whole thing, and now we understand. So the same thing with the digital data. I feel like we're in a place where people don't really care about the value of the data or that there is a value. But when these things are used against us as time goes by, then I think we start seeing why we should care.
You think there's any way to be able to own our digital twin, or have we given up all those rights already by signing up to Facebook? And is there any way to reverse that process and recover our digital twin?
Well, I mean, after Cambridge Analytica, Facebook, all these guys, they have tightened up their security practices quite a bit. So that's a good question, Carlos. That's a good question, and I think a journalist asked this question, I think a couple of years back, that I want my data back. So he went on a quest to get his data back. That was his only objective, is to get his data back. And I think there's a documentary on Netflix on this, that he journals his journey on getting his data back. And it ends up in a bunch of court systems, and finally I think it causes Cambridge Analytica to shut down. So yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I don't know how we go about getting our data back, or if there is a way. But the thing is, it hasn't come to a point where you're screwed forever. It's not that, right? It's just that if we start being more aware of it, if we understand what we're giving up, because technology, we're still at the tip of the iceberg, right? Right now, we might feel like this is a very technologically advanced time. 70 years from now, the later part of the century, we're going to look back at 2020 the same way we look back at 1920 when we were in 1999, right? In 1920s, people thought they were very progressive and advanced, but every generation feels that. So even with technology, we can see the curve hasn't, it's not like we're hitting the top of progress. I mean, there is so much. The horizon is just so vast. There's so much progress to make. So many ways to change that will impact the world in the coming days. Be it self-driving cars, be it the rise of automation, like you said, and AI, machine learning, deep learning. So it's not. It's just the beginning. It's not too late, to start being mindful of what we're doing with our data and how we want to, not be careless about it. How to be mindful about it. I think it's not too late.
All right. Moving on to the next subject. So you have a web page with NIF software. Let's see if we can show your web page. Is this it? You can check your screen. NIF software.
Once again, I'm not sharing the screen. Yeah, it is this one.
Yeah. Okay. So one of your specialties is augmented reality.
Yes.
How has the pandemic affected, or how will it affect that? How can this be used in the future? Augmented reality.
Well, one thing about AR is that all these days it didn't take a whole lot of traction, but now I think people are starting to warm up to it. Like, I see a lot of posts, online for people discovering the animals that were there in Google search all these days, but not a whole lot of people found it. But now if you type in tiger or lion in Google, you'll see there is a link to view it in 3D. And if you do that on your phone, that will bring the animal into your living room. Right, so this is a great entertainment for kids, and that's AR. So I think this time is people are warming up to the idea. So once, I think from here on out, we can probably start to see more of an adoption by the consumers, maybe. So far, consumers weren't really aware of AR as much. It was more B2B. It was more in the B2B space. But I think we're probably going to start to see some adoption. Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on virtual reality? Are people gonna just forget about reality and go into the virtual world?
Hey, it's a great way to entertain yourself. But I think virtual reality is finding its niche into. We went through a huge hype in VR. Back in 2016. There was a big hype in VR. A lot of companies got funded in anything to do with VR and AR. But now I think we're seeing a settlement into this into this space where VR would do well going into the future. It'll do well, I think, in gaming, in more like 4D experiences. There are some stores that are opening up in LA where you can go experience VR in, like as a movie theater. like as a walk-in experience. And a lot of that is like collaborative. A problem with VR is the problem of isolation. Once you put it on, then you're in your own world, and you can't really interact with your family or friends, right? So a lot of companies were trying to fix that. Companies like Alt VR, where they were bringing in your friends into your virtual world, but the renderings were very primitive. So it's not, it was okay, but not the greatest collaborative experience. And then companies like The Void from Utah, they came up with this idea of making this a 4D experience where your physical space is mapped into the virtual reality space. So if you're touching something in VR, you are touching something in the real world as well. So you get that, tangible, like the sense of touch. And then if it's raining in VR, they'll actually start a sprinkler system so you can actually feel, feel the spray.
So you can feel electrocuted?
Huh?
So you can feel electrocuted when it makes a short circuit.
Hopefully not.
Is there any? I'm going back to like the virtual meetings for work and stuff. Is not only VR for like entertainment purposes, but is there any development? I'm sure there is probably of VR for like the workspace, like having a virtual meeting, just like putting on a headset and it'd be like in a conference room and being just accessing everything through there.
Yeah. Actually, I was working at a company that developed that product, and so there are a few companies that are in this space where there's virtual meetings. So far, we still have to see some traction in that area. There isn't a whole lot of traction yet. I think we still need, like what's happening with the online meetings right now is it's still more useful at this time. So you would have thought that, given this situation, that we would have seen some traction in that area, but we still haven't. And I don't know about the future of that, application for VR. We have to see where it's going to go. It's just the bulkiness of the device. You have to wear that device if you're in a meeting, and it's not comfortable. We're also talking about everybody having to own an equipment just to get into the meetings. So all the technologies that have survived so far are things that have made it easier for people to jump on that platform, right? So collaborative meetings, if you're doing it with your phone and your laptop, people already have that, right? But if you're asking people to do the same thing, but they have to spend a couple grand to get a new system and get a VR device and headset and learn how to use it first of all, and then do what they actually want to do. That's an obstacle, big barrier to entry. I mean, it has a lot of good points to it, how you can actually share documents and share 3D assets and collaborate and look closely. Everybody can look closely into a 3D at a 3D model at the same time and talk about it. Like NASA had the virtual Mars mission for scientists, where they can all the scientists can jump onto the same space from different parts of the world and look at the same rock and comment and discuss that. So there are a lot of good points to it. It's just the barrier to entry is a little too high for consumer to take traction. So so far it's only been in the B2B space and in a very limited way.
All right, moving on. We have maybe like 10 minutes left. Let's move on to the filmmaking industry. You're a filmmaker also, and an actor, besides all the amazing stuff you do with AR, VR, and the stuff you do with the stock trade. You're also a filmmaker and actor. You directed a feature film called Atrophy. which had some distribution worldwide. And you start in a feature film called Elevated to Salvation. And whoever wants to see that, you can find it on Amazon Prime. Let's see, maybe some images from Atrophy, the film you directed. So, how do you think film production is going to change with social distancing? And how can you implement AR and VR or just like technology in general for film production?
So that's a great question, and I know you're a filmmaker and you're a very talented writer and producer in this area. So I think something that will interest you as well is called virtual production. A lot of that is happening. It's underlying the film industry. There's a big shift that's happening right now with digital humans and virtual production. So. And VR, the way VR ties into it is for mostly for previs, so directors can go into the virtual world and designed by artists in 3D as a 3D asset. They can step in and check out the world that their shot is going to be in already, right? So that saves a lot of cost. Previously, as you know, we would actually have to travel to the location and check out all this stuff and then we have to imagine the shots, how it's going to work out in this space. But now you can just sit at home and in a studio, and some the artist can design the world in a 3D engine, and you can actually put on the headset and be in that space where your final shot is going to be, and you can also bring in characters in that in that setup. So basically, think about storyboard, but in 3D world against the almost real prototype background. So that's the use of VR in that space, and then virtual production, digital humans. These things are becoming the centerpiece of production pipeline. Like Warner Brothers and Paramount and Fox and all these guys are moving towards virtual production in a big way, and there are lots of online research papers and online articles and documents you can find if you just type in if you're interested in virtual production. Yeah, that's definitely changing the industry in a big way.
You should check out the behind the scenes in The Mandalorian. Have you seen that show? It's like based on Star Wars, The Mandalorian. So what they do is the backgrounds are created in 3D in a virtual world, and it's synchronized with the camera. So every time the camera moves, the background moves, and it's using LEDs. LED screens, so the actors and the camera is in a space where the cover surrounded by huge screens, and everywhere the camera moves, the background also moves to adjust to the camera movement. And,
exactly.
And it looks amazing. The Mandalorian looks amazing. I recommend it.
Amazing. Yeah, and the actors now don't have to react to something imaginary, because they are actually seeing what's being overlaid in real time. So they are also, the sense of realism is heightened. And it does have some repercussions for the VFX industry, and it saves a lot of time, first of all. For example, just to give an example, when you are in a green screen environment and you have a metal jacket, let's say, or buttons on your shirt or suit, they're going to reflect green, right? So it's not just, or your eyes, they're reflecting green. So it's not just about replacing the background. Artists have to create a digital twin of the character just to be able to replace those reflections and then overlay it back on the live action plate. So all of that problem goes away if you actually have the actual environment being overlaid in the background in real time, in an LED light bank, on an LED light bank. There's a company called AR Wall, which is replacing the green screen completely. You should check it out. So now all your reflections, if you're shooting on shooting at a sunset, your reflections are of the sunset because that's what the background is bringing up. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So, like, some people said some jobs are just going to change. Like, say, like the carpenters, all the set designers, all those jobs are probably being transferred into the virtual world. Some people are going to have to just like learn to use the software, this technology, because like big productions with like more than 50 people in the crew, that's probably going to change also.
Totally. So I think, to go back to that question that you asked, what can people learn, in staying home? If people are interested in VFX, that is a good time to learn about, engines like Unity and Unreal, mostly Unreal Engine. That's what's used for, virtual production today. There's going to be a huge job shift for sure.
What's Unreal? If you can talk a little bit about that. Is that for designing backgrounds, or what is that used for?
Unreal Engine is basically an engine. It was a gaming platform. It was a game engine, but now they are using it more and more for cinematics. The rendering quality of the engine is very good. It matches closely with cinema quality renderings. They have real-time refractions, reflections, and now they have real-time ray tracing. So the whole, if you look at some of their examples, it's very, very cinematic quality rendering, and now they're doing it in real time. So most of the artists, they are generating the world inside Unreal, and their lighting and everything is inside Unreal. And so the camera that you were talking about, when it moves the virtual background, the way that's done is by placing a sensor onto the real camera that's moving in the real world. And so that sensor is feeding the engine's camera, which is rendering the virtual world. So as the real camera is moving, your virtual camera is moving the same way. And so your virtual background is shifting the same way as it would, as the real camera would have seen it move if it was overlaid in the background.
Okay, so what do you have to learn? What do you have to learn to be able to use this?
So Unreal has a lot of tutorials online. They have a really good Twitch stream that they bring in the experts from that field to talk about stuff. They have a whole online system of learning for free. If I think you go to their YouTube channel, Unreal Engine. Lots and lots and lots of tutorials. So you can, you can just follow the tutorials.
Okay.
And depending on which area you're interested in, if you're a programmer, you want to learn about Unreal, they have something called Blueprint System. They're also based on C++, so you can do either or. Most people jump in with Blueprints to begin with. It's a node-based programming, visually, placing nodes to drive your logic. And if you're an artist, you can go to the art track. If you're an animator, you can go to the animation track. If you're a game developer, you can go through their game development track. If you're a modeler or a technical artist or want to do lighting, you can just do that track. So lots, really good resources online for that. Yeah.
Okay, so do you have any other ideas on film production, on making films? What can actors do?
What are actors gonna do?
Yeah, what are actors gonna do? Are you worried as an actor?
It's a tough time for actors. Mostly its production is halted in town or postponed. It was canceled first, and now it's postponed until the theaters are opened up, or so. So currently, I think NCIS is doing a lot of online auditions. So if you have an agent, you should probably ask your agent if you can go for an NCIS audition. They're doing a lot of pre-screens. They're using this time to do that online. But yeah, I mean, there's just, I think actors should just focus on creating their own content. I think that's the best. Like, the platforms are all here. There is really not a whole lot of point to hang on to traditional platforms and traditional pipelines to in the hopes of getting a break or somebody giving you a chance. And all that stuff was great in the 70s and the 80s, and the old traditional pipeline worked that way. It doesn't work that way anymore. So the new platforms are already here. And there is no reason actors can't take advantage of any of that. And they can completely get a little lighting kit, get a little microphone, start their online channel. A lot of actors actually do, but I think a lot more actors need to get involved and just take control of their own creative content and delivery of that content to people, finding their own audience. Platforms are all getting built out. There's no barrier to entry is very low.
Any ideas of creating a VR rehearsal space for actors?
A VR rehearsal space?
Yes, I've heard a lot of actors are like kind of rehearsing, or like a lot of productions have halted, but they're still trying to meet up through these platforms that are for meetings. But there's still like it must be weird to rehearse through a webcam.
I like the idea of VR rehearsal space. Let's do that. No, it's actually not that weird. At first, we thought it's going to be awkward, but since our acting class went online, we are actually liking it.
Yeah,
it's more intimate. And it's more intimate. You're actually talking to the close-up of a person. Your focus is right here. It's interesting, and I think I can see it being a very viable option for a lot of things going forward. Even for self-taping and all that stuff. Now we're like, okay, why didn't we just think about this? Because as you know, if there's a self-taping comes in, you have to call a friend, see who is available, or you go to a location, pay them $40 to just do a self-tape. But you could just do it on Skype. It actually works. It works really well. Your face is in a close-up. You can really see your thoughts. I think it works really well. I'm excited about it.
Okay, so maybe some recommendations for maybe cameras or green screens or lights that people can buy at home to use in their own space, like to keep doing stuff. Maybe Carlos, do you have any recommendations, or Bivás?
No, there's a lot of options for that. I don't know, there's like basic kits that go from like $100 all the way to like $400 or $500. There's like basic lighting and green screen kits depending on like what you need. I mean, there's like most gamers I see have this like a basic setup, just like a green backdrop and that's it. That's all they need to start going. Just like OBS or any of these streaming setups.
Yeah.
So it can be done with really very little, and it's just like the constants. Just keep doing it.
What are some actors and filmmakers doing in India? They have like they're acting in the same space, but they're not in the same space.
Yeah.
Bivás, do you have? I think you told me something about that.
Yeah, there was a short film made by the Indian actors. from Bollywood, and it was done really well. They, everybody did it from their home, but it cuts in a way that it's hard to tell that it's not the same space. So I think a lot of production planning went into it, even though it's everybody's doing it from their home. But who is sitting at, like, I'm pretty sure I'm sure they went through in, like, taking account of inventory, like what kind of table do you have, what kind of table does he have, and when we cut it together, it looks like they're sitting across the same table, and things of that nature. Who has what kind of living room, what kind of they did it in black and white, and that was a good idea, because probably would have been really difficult to color grade across different lighting conditions. But yeah, it's just it's like a whole new platform that's opening up, that you can just be creative.
All right, yeah, maybe we should try something like that. Just like do an experiment. You record something from your own home, we'll do something from this home, and let's think of something like a scene we could do.
Yeah.
Plan it really well so it looks like the same space. And then
totally.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Totally.
So I think we're reaching the end of the interview, Bivás. It was great having you. We got some amazing insight on stock market, on technology, on the future, on job possibilities in the future. And it was great having you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Thanks for the chat. I think when we were talking about the stock market at some point, I was telling you about risk management, and you really liked it. So I'll just leave this here for your viewers. One of the ways to make money in the stock market is not to chase the money directly. Because somebody had once told me, like, there are three things that you can't get by chasing them directly, and that's money, success, and happiness. They're a byproduct of something else. So in the stock market, the way to make money is by managing your risks, managing your emotions, and managing your position size. Right. Once you know how to manage these things well, then the money takes care of itself, and the profit takes care of itself. So yeah,
that's awesome.
It's basically like focusing on the trade itself, like being able to execute the trade to the best of your ability and not worry about how much profit you're making. It's like, it's otherwise it'd be like a doctor counting money in the middle of a surgery,
All right.
Would you hire a lawyer who is counting money in the middle of an argument, how much he's making?
Look at this money I'm making. You should hire me.
It's like, that's it. Okay. That's a good comparison.
Yeah.
All right, Bivás, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me, and good chatting with you.
Yeah, if you have any links towards your work, we're gonna post them on the bottom section of this video. And please subscribe to Nerdopolitan for more great interviews.